Don't open it here.
If I could go back to that afternoon, I don't know if I'd still take the note, because after I read what was folded up inside it, I could never look at anyone in that backyard the same way again. Not Danny, not his dad working the grill, not the kid cannonballing into the pool, who I'd watched grow up from a stroller, and especially not the woman who pressed it into my hand. But in that moment, all Diane did was fold my fingers shut around it and whisper four words: "Don't open it here," and I just smiled like an idiot, because I couldn't see what was coming. It was the 4th of July, and the Mercers' backyard looked the way it always looked. String lights strung between the fence posts even though the sun wasn't down yet, a cooler the size of a bathtub, sweating in the grass, somebody's speaker playing the same three summer songs on a loop, the kind that get into your teeth and stay there till August. There was smoke rolling off the grill and the smell of charred meat and chlorine, and a folding table sagging under foil pans, and at least 20 people I'd known half my life standing around in flip-flops, pretending the heat wasn't trying to kill them. I'd been coming to this barbecue for 14 years. I knew where the bottle opener lived. I knew which lawn chair would dump you flat on your back if you leaned too far. I knew that Danny's dad, Ray, would burn the first round of burgers and blame the grill every single year like the grill had a grudge. That's the thing about the Mercers. Somewhere along the line, they stopped being my best friend's family and just became sort of, mine. My name's Wes. I build things, cabinets, decks, the occasional staircase for people who have more money than they know what to do with. I've got rough hands and a quiet mouth and not a lot of family of my own, which is a sentence I'll get to in a minute. For now, just know that when I walked into that backyard, I had a paper plate in one hand and a sweating can in the other, and I figured the most dangerous thing that would happen to me all day was Danny's uncle trying to teach me to shotgun a beer again, the way he did at every gathering, drunk and delighted like it was a skill that would change my life. Ray waved me over to the grill with the spatula. "Wes, tell me these aren't burnt." "They're burnt, Ray." He pointed the spatula at me. "You're dead to me." He flipped one anyway, and it was a hockey puck, and we both looked at it. "New grill," he said. "Bad grill." "I'm taking it back. You say that every year, and every year they sell me a lemon," he said, deeply wounded, and I laughed and took a not burnt one off the cool side because I knew where the good ones hid, and that was the last easy minute I had for the rest of the night, because that's when Diane came around the side of the cooler. She had her hair down, the way she wore it in summer, all that honey color going gray at the part she never bothered to hide and never apologized for. She had a glass of wine in her hand that she wasn't drinking, and she smiled at me the way she always did, like I was a little bit funny just for existing, and she reached out and put her hand over mine like she was steadying me on a step I hadn't noticed. There was a square of folded paper in her palm, lined notebook paper, soft and grayed at the creases, like it had been folded and unfolded 100 times over a lot of years. She moved it into my hand, closed my fingers around it, and she leaned in close, close enough that I caught sunscreen and the wine she wasn't drinking, and she said it so quiet I almost lost it under the music. "Don't open it here." I laughed. I actually laughed because I thought it was a bit some inside joke I'd walked into the middle of. "What is this?" I said. "A ransom note? You want me to leave the money in a duffel bag by the pool?" She didn't laugh back. That's the part I keep coming back to. Diane laughed at everything. She laughed at funerals. She laughed when she burned her hand on the grill. She'd been laughing at me since I was a skinny teenager showing up at her dinner table, too shy to ask anyone to pass the salt, but she didn't laugh now. She just held my eyes a second too long and said, "Later, when you're alone, you promise me." "I promise," I said, "because what else do you say?" And then she was gone, back into the noise, refilling somebody's glass, laughing at something her sister said, kissing the top of a niece's wet head like she just told me. Where the extra napkins were, I stood there with the paper burning a hole in my fist. Now, here's what you have to understand about me, and I'll keep it short because I don't much like the sound of my own sad story. My mom died when I was 7. I barely remember her. I've got pieces. A yellow kitchen with a window over the sink. The way she'd hum without knowing she was doing it. Some tune she never finished. A pair of hands turning the pages of a book over my shoulder. But her face, her actual voice, the exact sound of her saying my name, gone, smoothed over like a footprint in the tide. My dad didn't handle it. That's the polite version. He didn't hit anybody, didn't do anything you could put a name to or a cop on. He just left a little more every day, the way water leaves a creek in August. Until one summer there was a man living in our house who looked like my father and wasn't, and then a few years after that there wasn't even that. There was a note on the counter and a truck gone from the driveway and a kid figuring out how the electric bill worked. So I want you to picture a 13-year-old who basically raised himself, and the only reason he didn't turn out worse is a loudmouth named Danny Mercer, who decided in the 7th grade that I belonged to him and dragged me home for dinner one night and never really sent me back. His mother set a place for me at that table like I'd always been there. No big speech, no pity face, which I'd have walked out on. Diane just put a plate down in front of me with an extra scoop of everything because she'd taken one look at me and decided I needed feeding, and that was the first night in a long time I went to bed not hungry. I didn't have a word for what that was back then. I have one now, but I didn't then. That's who handed me the note. So when I tell you I spent the next 2 hours of that barbecue about half out of my mind, understand it wasn't only curiosity, it was that Diane Mercer did not do mysterious. Diane was the most no-secrets person I ever met in my life. She'd tell you her cholesterol numbers, her honest opinion of your haircut, and exactly what she'd paid for the potato salad, all in one breath before you'd finished saying hello. For her to slip me something folded up like contraband and tell me not to open it, something was wrong, bad wrong, the kind of wrong you don't say out loud in a backyard full of people you love. I tried to open it twice. I swear I did. The first time, I drifted toward the side gate, found a sliver of shade by the recycling bins, and got 2 fingers into the fold before a small wet body slammed into my legs. It was the pool kid, Diane's great-nephew, dripping and triumphant. "Did you see my cannonball?" "I saw it," I said, sliding the note behind my back. "You made a tidal wave. I want to do a bigger one." "There is no bigger one," I said. "You've peaked. It's all downhill from here, buddy." He thought about that, decided it was a compliment, and ran off to peek again. I got the note halfway out a second time, and that was when Diane's sister, Carol, materialized at my elbow with a plate of something and a question. "Wesley, you look thin. Are you eating?" "I'm eating." "Carol, you're not. Look at you." "Here." She pushed the plate at me. It was potato salad and 3 kinds of meat and a roll, balanced like a bricklayer built it. "Eat that and then come find me. I want your opinion on something for the church. I'm not really a church guy, Carol. It's a fence thing, not a God thing," she said, already walking away. "You're a fence guy. I am a fence guy." She had me there, and by the time I'd set the plate down somewhere safe, Danny had spotted me from across the yard. There he is, hiding. Classic Wes. Danny came at me with 2 beers and that grin he's had since he was 9, the one that says he's about to make your day either a whole lot better or a whole lot worse and hasn't decided which. He's a big guy now, broad through the shoulders, sunburned across the nose, and he's got just enough of his mother in his face that sometimes it stops me cold mid-sentence. "I wasn't hiding," I said, and slid the note into my back pocket. "You were absolutely hiding. You do this every year. You find a corner and you stand in it and you watch everybody like a serial killer, taking notes for later." "I'm an introvert," I said. "We observe." "You're a weirdo," he said warmly and handed me a beer I didn't want and clinked his against it before I could refuse. Then his face did a thing, went careful around the edges, and he said, "Hey, you really doing it? Portland?" And there it is. Because I hadn't told the whole backyard yet, but I told Danny a week before, sitting in his truck outside the hardware store, that I'd taken a job 3 states away, a real one, lead carpenter for an outfit that built custom homes from the ground up, good money, a foreman who'd seen my work on a job site and walked over and said he wanted me running his crew by spring, the kind of break a guy like me does not get twice in a life. I'd said yes. I'd already put down a deposit on an apartment I'd never seen, in a city I'd never been to, most of the way across the country, from the only step I'd ever called mine. "Yeah," I said. "Yeah, I'm doing it." Danny nodded down at his beer. "When?" "End of the month." "End of this month?" He looked up. "That's like 3 weeks. I'm not getting any younger, man." "You're 30, he said. "You're a fetus. You're barely cooked." I laughed, but he didn't. Not all the way, and we stood there a second with the music going and the smoke and the kids screaming, and I watched my best friend try to be happy for me and not quite get there. "It's good money," I said, like that was the thing he was worried about. "I know it is, and it's the kind of job that if I don't take it now, somebody else does, and I'm still building decks for orthodontists at 50. "I know, man. I'm happy for you. I am." He took a long pull on his beer. "I just figured we'd be old men in this backyard, burning burgers on a bad grill. I figured you'd be the weird uncle to my kids. You don't have kids. I will." He gestured vaguely at the whole party with his can. Somebody's got to keep this going. And I always just figured you'd be standing right there in the corner, taking your notes. I didn't have anything for that, so I did what I do, which is reach for the joke. I'll come back, I said. Who else is going to tell your dad his burgers are burnt? Danny snorted, then his face went careful again, and he said the thing that stuck a thumb right in the bruise. Does Mom know? I looked across the yard. Diane was at the grill now, stealing a burger off Ray's spatula, swatting his hand away, the whole performance, both of them grinning. She looked fine. She looked exactly like she always looked. Not yet, I said. You gotta tell her, man. He shook his head slow. She's gonna lose it. You know you're like the fourth kid she never asked for, right? You know that. She's gonna ugly cry right into the deviled eggs. I'll tell her, I said, and right then I felt the note in my back pocket like it had its own pulse, its own little heartbeat against me, because here's where my brain went. Standing there in the smoke with the one guy who'd ever picked me on purpose, I thought, she knows. Somebody told her I'm leaving, Ray maybe, or she overheard, and she's gone and written me some long emotional thing she's too proud to say to my face, and she doesn't want me reading it here because she doesn't want to watch me get to the end of it. That's all it is. That's the whole mystery. A mother saying goodbye in writing because out loud is too much. That theory lasted me about an hour. It was a good theory. It was a kind theory. It let me put the paper back in my pocket and go play cornhole with Danny against two of his cousins, and the whole game Danny kept up a running commentary like he was calling a prize fight. He's lining up, the cousin said a prayer he can't repeat. Wes, you're a machine. You're a beautiful machine. Don't choke. I never choke, I said, and choked, and put a bean bag clean off the side of the board into the flower bed. The whole yard groaned. Danny put his face in his hands like I'd cost him his life savings. One of the cousins did a slow, sarcastic clap that traveled. That's coming out of your paycheck, Danny told me. I don't work for you. You do now. I'm garnishing your wages. He retrieved the bag from the flowers and handed it back like a coach. Okay, breathe. Think about how much you love me. Now throw. I threw it dead center. Danny lost his entire mind, grabbed me by the shoulders, shook me. The cousins demanded a recount, and for about 4 minutes, in the smoke, in the music, with my best friend hollering in my ear, I forgot all about the paper in my pocket. Then I ate a hot dog off the cool side of the grill and lost $2 on a bet about whether the pool kid would do a belly flop, which he did, eventually, magnificently, to a standing ovation from the deep end. But I kept watching her. And the longer I watched, the more the kind theory came apart in my hands, because Diane wasn't moving like a woman who'd written a sweet goodbye. She was moving like a woman with a clock running somewhere, only she could hear it. She kept finding me with her eyes. Every time I glanced up, she was already looking, and she'd snap away fast, busy herself with a tray, a kid, a cousin, a paper towel. Once I caught her standing alone by the back door, not doing anything at all, one hand resting flat against the door frame, like she was holding herself still against something only she could feel. And when she saw me see her, she smiled, and it was the worst smile I'd ever gotten from that woman in 14 years, because it was the kind you put on when something heavy is sitting on you and you don't want anybody to ask about it, the kind that's really just a way of not crying. Then I watched Ray come up behind her and say something low in her ear and put a hand flat on her back, and she leaned into him for just a second, just one, before she straightened up and laughed at something and was Diane again, loud and bright and in motion. But I'd seen it. Ray knew whatever this was. He had the look of a man steadying his wife through something he couldn't carry for her, only stand close while she carried it, and that told me it was real, because Ray was a man who burned burgers and lost his keys and never once in his life looked weighed down by anything that actually mattered. So I did the second thing. I went looking for her. I found her in the kitchen, alone, which almost never happened at one of these. She was at the sink with the water running over a stack of plates. She wasn't really washing, just holding under the stream. The window over the sink looked out on the whole yard, the lights coming on now as the sky turned to that bruised summer pink. Danny doing something idiotic with a sparkler, Ray laughing his big laugh at it. Diane, I said. She didn't turn around. Did you read it? No, you said not to. Good, good, and her shoulders came down an inch, just one. Not here. You promised me you'll be somewhere quiet. I came and stood next to her at the counter, put my hands flat on it. The water coming out of the tap was too hot, fogging the window in front of her. You're scaring me, I told her, and I don't scare easy. You taught me that. That got something out of her, half a laugh, but it broke right down the middle. I'm fine, she said. I'm not. But I am. She turned off the water at last and stood there with her hands dripping, staring out at her own backyard like she was trying to memorize the whole thing, every light, every face. Wes, can I ask you something and you tell me the truth? Not the joke. The truth, always. Are you happy? Going. This Portland thing. She finally turned and looked at me. Is it because there's something good up there pulling you, or because there's nothing down here holding you? And I didn't have an answer. That was the answer, I guess. I opened my mouth and nothing honest came out, so nothing came out. She nodded like I'd confirmed something she'd already known. Then she reached up, this woman who'd fed me for 14 years, and she fixed my collar where it had flipped under itself the way she'd been doing since I was a teenager. This little automatic mom thing she did without even thinking about it. And her eyes were wet now, no hiding it under the kitchen light. When you read it, she said, don't be mad at me. I should have done it a long time ago. Years ago, I was a coward about it. Your whole life I told myself I was protecting you, and the truth is I was just scared, and I let the scared win, over and over. Diane, what is it? Ray's voice came booming in from the yard. Hanjin Han, where's the lighter fluid? The kids want sparklers. She wiped her face fast with the back of her wrist, and the mask came down smooth as water, and she called back, in the garage, where it lives, where it's lived for 20 years, same shelf, and she turned and squeezed my arm once, hard, her wet hand soaking through my sleeve, and she went back out into her party. And I went down the hall to the little bathroom and locked the door behind me and finally took the note out of my pocket. My hands weren't steady. I want that on the record. Big tough carpenter hands. Like 40 grit sandpaper. Hands that can hang a door blind, and I could barely get the thing unfolded. It came open in pieces, the creases gone soft as cloth, almost tearing along the worn lines, and the first thing I saw wasn't the words at all, it was the handwriting, because I knew right away that handwriting wasn't Diane's. Diane wrote like a doctor on a deadline, all slashes and speed and half the letters missing. This was round and careful and a little old-fashioned, the letters leaning into each other like they were holding hands across the page. And I had seen it before, on the back of one photograph I owned, the only one, on a recipe card taped inside a cabinet in a yellow kitchen. I could barely remember being small and it was my mother's handwriting. I sat down on the edge of the bathtub because my legs just quietly decided to stop being legs. There was a smaller note paper clipped to the front of it, and that one was Diane's. The slashing doctor scrawl, just 2 lines. She wrote this for you before she got too sick to write. She made me promise to give it to you when you were grown and standing on your own 2 feet. I think today's the day. Finally, I'm sorry I waited so long. I'm so sorry. D. And then, under it, in my mother's hand, in the round, careful letters of a woman who'd been gone 23 years, was a letter. To me. My name at the top of it, spelled right, the way Diane always spelled it, right on the Christmas presents. I'm not going to read you all of it. Some of it belongs to me and a kitchen and a woman I can't remember and don't want to share, but I'll tell you the shape of it. She started by apologizing for the handwriting, said the medicine made her hands shake, and she wanted this to come out neat because she figured it might be the only thing of hers I'd really get to keep and hold, and she didn't want it to look like it was written by somebody scared, even though she was. She said she knew she wasn't going to get to see me grow up. She'd made her peace with most of it, she wrote, except the part she couldn't, and the part she couldn't make peace with most of all was that she was going to miss every single bit of it. My first day of school, whatever I turned out to be good with my hands at, the girl or the boy I'd bring home one day and be too nervous to look at across the dinner table. She said sorry for that too, for all the years she was going to be a name and a photograph instead of a person who could hug me. She said she hoped I wouldn't hold the leaving against her because she didn't have a choice or she'd have stayed forever. She'd have been the most annoying old woman alive. She'd have embarrassed me at every turn and loved every minute of it. And wasn't it just exactly like the world to come and take the one thing she would never in her life have given up on her own? Then she wrote about Diane. She wrote, there is a woman named Diane who is going to look out for you. She is my best friend in the whole world, and she is a pain in the neck, and she cheats at cards, and she will deny both of those things to your face. But she has the biggest heart of anyone I have ever known, and she has promised me. So when I'm gone, she wrote, you won't really be alone in this, even on the days it feels like it. You'll have her, and she is going to do all the things I wanted to do and won't get to. She's going to feed you too much. She's going to tell you when your collar's flipped under. She's going to lie awake worrying about you in the middle of the night and never let on. Let her, baby. Don't you dare push her away just to prove you're tough. Being tough all by yourself is not the same thing as being strong. I need you to learn the difference faster than I learned it. You let that woman love you. It's the last thing your mother is ever going to ask you for. Let somebody love you. and right at the end, before her name, she wrote one more line smaller, like she'd run low on the steady hand. She wrote, "I'm not scared of the leaving, baby. I'm only scared you'll grow up thinking nobody stayed. So I'm telling you now in writing where you can hold it. Somebody stayed. Her name is Diane. Go find her." I read that part 4 times because I had spent 14 years at that family's table thinking I was the stray they'd been generous enough to take in off the street. The charity case, the hard luck kid who got the extra scoop because somebody felt sorry for him and was too. Decent to say so, and the whole time, the whole entire time, every plate, every Christmas, Diane Mercer had not been doing me a favor. She'd been keeping a promise to a dying woman. Every flipped collar, every be careful that she said when I left and actually meant, every present under that tree with my name spelled right, every time she made too much food on a Sunday and acted surprised when I happened to come by hungry. She had been mothering me on purpose, in secret, for 23 years, and she had never once told me, never once cashed it in, never once made me feel like I owed her so much as a thank you. And now I was 3 weeks out from moving 3 states away, because in her own words, there was nothing down here holding me. I sat on the cold edge of that tub in a house full of noise, and I cried the way I hadn't let myself cry since I was a boy, the ugly silent kind where you can't make a single sound because somebody might hear you through the door. And the whole time I could hear them out there, the party, the bad music, the pool kid peeking again, the whole loud, warm life I'd been standing at the edge of for 14 years, watching it like a serial killer taking notes, too scared the entire time to believe it might actually be mine to walk into. When I finally came out, the sky had gone all the way dark, and the fireworks were starting somewhere down the block. Those flat, distant cracks and pops. People were drifting around to the front of the house to watch over the rooftops. I found Diane exactly where I knew she'd be, which was nowhere near the crowd. She was sitting alone on the back step with her wine glass finally empty in her hand, looking up at a sky she couldn't really see for all the lights, and when she heard the screen door creak, she didn't turn around. "You read it," she said. I sat down next to her on the step. Close, our shoulders touching, the concrete still held the heat of the whole long day. "Why now?" I said. My voice came out wrecked, and I didn't care even a little. She was quiet a second. "Because you said end of the month," she said, "because you've been getting ready to leave this town your whole entire life, since you were a boy, and I kept telling myself there'd be a better time to give it to you, a calmer time, a right time, and there never was one. There's never a right time for a thing like that, and now you're actually going, and I caught myself doing the exact thing I always do, waiting, being a coward about the thing that matters most." She shook her head at the dark. "Your mother trusted me with one job. One. Give him the letter. And I sat on it for 23 years because every time I picked it up, I got scared all over again. Scared of what? That you'd read it," she said, "and decide every nice thing I ever did for you was just me checking a box off a list." She said it fast, like it had been waiting a long time behind her teeth to get out. That you'd find out it started as a promise, and you'd decide that meant none of it was real. And it was real, Wes. I need you to hear me say it. It started as a promise to your mother, and then about the third time you fell asleep face down at my dinner table because you'd been working 2 jobs at 17, and you were so tired you couldn't keep your head up. It stopped being a promise. It just stopped. After that, you were mine, same as Danny. I swear to you, I never once felt the difference, not for one day. "Where'd you even keep it?" I said. "All those years." "In my jewelry box," she said, "under the tray, the part nobody looks." She laughed a little. I'd take it out sometimes late when the house was quiet and just hold it. Couldn't make myself give it to you. Couldn't make myself put it away for good either. Your mom's handwriting on the front. After a while, it got soft as a dollar bill for me, folding it open and shut, deciding, not deciding. She shook her head. 23 years of almost. I'm not proud of it. I had to look out at the dark yard for a while before I could get any words to come. "You know what I always thought," I said. "This whole time, every dinner, I thought I was the kid you felt sorry for." She made a sound, half a laugh, half something coming apart. "Oh, honey, no." She put her hand over mine on the cold concrete step, the same hand, the same exact gesture as the cooler, except now I finally understood what it had always meant. "You were never the kid we felt sorry for, not once. You were the boy who fixed my porch railing the summer you turned 19 and wouldn't take a single dollar for it. Who came back the next weekend and did the gate too. You were the one who showed up at the hospital at 2 in the morning when Danny wrecked his bike and sat in that ugly waiting room all night long so I wouldn't have to be scared by myself. You think I fed you?" She laughed and wiped at her face with both hands. You've been taking care of this family since you were a boy who could barely see over the steering wheel. I just kept the secret of why I let you in so close. That was the only part I kept. The fireworks were really going now, the sky over the back fence flashing red, and then gold, and then gone, lighting up her face and dropping it back into dark. I don't think I'm going to Portland, I said. She turned and looked at me sharp, and her voice came out hard. Don't you dare! Don't you do that to me! Don't you turn down the best thing that's ever come your way over a piece of paper and a sentimental old woman who should have given it to you a decade ago. It's not the paper, I said, and it wasn't. I tried to find the words for it, and they came out clumsy and crooked, the way the true ones always do, the ones you haven't rehearsed. I've been running my whole life, I said, from this town, from that house, from the whole, the whole sad story of it, and I told myself the running was the brave thing. Getting out, going somewhere nobody knew the kid whose dad left a note on the counter, not getting stuck the way my dad got stuck. But I read what she wrote, and she wanted me to let somebody love me. That was her last ask. Let somebody love you. And I've had somebody loving me this whole entire time, sitting right across the dinner table, and I was about to drive halfway across the country away from it because I was too thick to even notice it was there. That's not brave, Diane. Driving away from the only family you've got, that's not brave at all. That's just my dad with a nicer reason for it. She didn't say anything to that. She just gripped my hand harder on the step. So here's what I'm thinking, I said, and I figured it out somewhere between the bathroom and this step, so go easy on it. I take the job, because you're right, she'd be right, it's a good job, and I'd be a fool to throw it back, and I didn't claw my way up from nothing to start being a coward now, but I'm not running to it. There's the difference. I'm going to go up there and do it for a year, maybe two, and learn everything that crew can teach me, and I'm going to come back. Every holiday, every birthday, every dumb burnt 4th of July, and I'm going to call you on Sundays whether you pick up or not, and when I've got enough put away, I'm coming home for good and opening my own shop with my own name on the sign right here, and you're going to be so sick of the sight of me, you'll wish you'd thrown that note in the grill. She was full on crying now and laughing at the same time, the ugly cry Danny had promised, right into the metaphorical deviled eggs of it. Your mother, she said, when she could get the words out, would have liked you so much, not just loved you. Anybody can love a baby, she would have liked you. The grown man, she'd have thought you were so funny. You are, you know that? You're funny in this dry, mean, sideways little way, and you've got no idea you're doing it half the time. I learned it from somebody, I said. She laughed and bumped her shoulder into mine, and we sat there a while not saying anything, which between us was the same as saying everything. Now, there's one more thing, and then I'll let you go on home. Folded up at the very bottom of my mother's letter, underneath the place where she'd signed it with all her love, there was a postscript. One line. She'd written, when you read this, do me one favor and go hug Diane for me, because she is going to need it more than she will ever once say out loud, and she will never ever ask you for it. I'd been sitting on that line for an hour, not knowing how in the world to do it, because I am not a hugger, never have been. That's one more thing the sad story handed me free of charge. But sitting on that warm step with the last fireworks dying out over the fence, next to this woman who'd loved me in total secret for 23 years, because a dying friend asked her to, and then, because she just couldn't help it, I figured it out. I said, my mom left a P.S. on the bottom. Diane wiped her face. Yeah? What did she say? She said to give you something from her, said you'd never ask for it, and I put my arm around that woman and pulled her in, awkward and clumsy and too tight, the way you hug when you've half forgotten how it's done, and she grabbed onto the front of my shirt with both fists, and she just fell apart against my shoulder. 23 years of a promise she'd carried entirely alone, finally allowed to set itself down on the step between us. And I held my best friend's mother in the dark on the back step of the only home I'd ever really had, while the very last of the fireworks went off over the fence and lit us both up gold, and I said the thing into her hair I should have said 1,000 dinners ago and never had the words for. Thank you. For all of it, every plate. I know now. I finally know. The screen door creaked again behind us at some point, and it was Danny, standing there with 2 beers and a look on his face like he'd walked in on something he didn't have the map for. He saw his mother crying into my shoulder and me with my face wrecked, and to his credit, he didn't make it a joke, not right away. What did I miss? He said quietly. I'll tell you sometime, I said. He looked at the two of us a second longer, then he came and sat down on the step on Diane's other side and handed me a beer over the top of her head and put his arm around his mother from the side, so she was just held there between the two of us in the dark, and he said, well, whatever it is. We're not crying alone out here. That's the rule, and Diane laughed. this wet, wrecked, beautiful laugh, and called him a knucklehead, and we sat there, the three of us, while the fireworks finished up over the fence. I took the job. I went up to Portland, and I came back exactly like I said I would, every holiday and every birthday, sleeping on Danny's couch and stealing burnt burgers off Ray's Bad Grill until the holidays added up to enough and I moved home for good and opened the shop. It's got my name on the sign out front, and it's got her recipe card still taped inside the cabinet in the office, the yellow one, the only thing of hers I ever really kept. Right where I can see it when I do the books, Diane comes by in the slow afternoons. She brings me too much food and acts surprised that I'm hungry. She tells me when my collar's flipped under. She still cheats at cards and she still denies it to my face, exactly the way my mother said she would. And every single 4th of July, before the fireworks start up down the block, the two of us slip away from all the noise and we go sit on that same back step, and we don't say much. We don't have to anymore. Some promises, once you finally set them down, you just get to sit beside them forever. I think about that folded note a lot, the one I almost didn't take, the one I almost opened too soon in the wrong place, with all the wrong people watching before I had any idea what it was going to do to me. She was right, my mom, about every bit of it, about the medicine and the shaking hands and the woman who cheats at cards and has the biggest heart in the whole world. Being tough all by yourself isn't the same as being strong. It took me 23 years and one soft folded piece of notebook paper to finally learn the difference. But I learned it. Here's something I keep turning over, and maybe you can help me with it. Who's the person who's been quietly loving you this whole time, the one you never fully let in because you were too busy being strong on your own? Because if there's a Diane somewhere in your life, somebody keeping a promise to you that you never even knew they made, don't go waiting 23 years to let them know you finally see it. Tell me about them down below. I really do read these, everyone, and I think we could all use the reminder tonight. And if this one got to you the way it got to me writing it, go on and give it a like so it finds its way to the next person who needs to hear it. And then stick around. Subscribe, pull up a chair, sit with us a while. There's always a place at this table. We already saved you the extra scoop.